5.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Good afternoon and welcome to our live safaris, the only place in the entire world where you can be sitting on your couch at home or on your laptop at work or maybe even sneakily on your phone in the middle of a somewhat boring work lunch and watching a live safari right here in the middle of South Africa. The only place where you can see dramatic skies such as the ones that we've been experiencing over the last couple of days. Starting off our afternoon's sunset safari with a group of impala resting in the shade somewhat on this relatively warm afternoon, considering that it is the middle of winter. Welcome to our live drives. My name is Jamie, and this afternoon I have Dave on camera with me. Brent is out with Jandre on the other vehicle, and between us as a group, we will be looking for all kinds of amazing things to show you in the African bush. And we're coming to you live from Djuma, Arathusa, Sabi Sands in the Greater Kruger National Park, northeastern corner of our wonderful country. Now, not only is what you're seeing happening right here in real life in this amazing place, but we are also live and interactive, which means that you can send through your questions using the hashtag SafariLIVE on Twitter, or you can email through to questions@wildearth.tv. I said it was a warm afternoon, and indeed it is. A warm 23 degrees centigrade, which is around the mid-70s in Fahrenheit. We do enjoy the luxury in this part of South Africa of not really freezing too much in the middle of the day, despite our abilities to complain about it. Looking at the moment at one of the most common antelope species in South Africa, and certainly the most numerous in the Kruger National Park, the Impala. Having a quiet grooming and ruminating session. Okay, well, let us not linger too long. Oh, somebody's lying down for a bit of a rest. We, on the other hand, shall not be resting. We shall be heading out and see what we can find you on this glorious afternoon. We started off this morning with an incredible sighting, one of the best sightings I've had with the Inuma pride of lions. It's a pride of lions consisting of 5 females that this area forms part of their home range. Now this morning we only had 3, and for very good reason, because one of them is lying up with 3 brand new cubs that we have yet to see, but which we eagerly anticipate the first sighting of, and one that was off mating with a Birmingham boy somewhere else. The 3 of them were hunting buffalo this morning. One of them very nearly jumped on top of one before they decided to give up for the while that we were watching them and go and play a little bit and rest by the dam. Now, that will be our plans for the afternoon, will be to head across and see if we can't find where they've gone and if they ever manage to be successful with the buffalo. While we head out in that direction, Brent would like to say good afternoon with another one of our beloved characters.
Welcome to Safari Live, and hiding behind that terminalia in the wind, I'm just going to try and move a bit forward, is a favorite of mine and a lot of our viewers. It's Nelson, the one-eyed, one-horned impala who has one ambition: to avoid all leopards all the time. And it is great to see him. He is by himself again, keeping his good eye on us. And for those of you who are not sure why he's named Nelson, named after Lord Admiral Horatio Nelson of the British fleet, who led, I think it was the Battle of Waterloo, to bring down Napoleon. And he was famous for having one eye, one arm, and one ambition, and that was to bring down Napoleon. But our Nelson, not as brave. He'd prefer to avoid a fight with any of the resident leopards of Djuma Private Game Reserve. Speaking of resident leopards, that's what we're in search for on this sunset safari. And my name is Brent Leo Smith. I have Genre heading on camera. And this is Safari Live. And let's go see if we can find Queen Karula, the dominant female leopard of Juma. So she was briefly seen on the sunrise safari, not by us, by one of the guides to the south of us, crossing into Juma. So we did try to find her on the sunrise safari, but alas, Queen Karula and her wily ways outsmarted three of us. There were three different vehicles looking for her, so I'm hoping she's going to be a little bit more forthcoming this sunset safari. Now we're back in this area around the treehouse waterhole, which is a favorite haunt of hers. What? Genre spotted something. I'm not sure what it is. Oh, it's taken off. Sorry, Genre. There was, and now is, a highly mobile lilac-breasted roller. So Karula really likes this area, and she's not the biggest physically leopard around. Probably weighs around, probably about 35, 40 kgs, so around 75, 80 pounds. And she is getting quite old now. She's over 12 years old. So she tends to focus on smaller prey, like steenbok and duiker, which are two of the smaller antelope species we get here, which make it easier for her to hoist. And when I say hoist, she takes that kill up into the tree to protect it from hyenas and lions and other scavengers. If she kills something as big as a male impala like Nelson, she's going to struggle to be able to lift that into the tree. The general rule, and it's a very general rule with leopards, is they can sort of lift their body weight plus 10%, more or less. So there are, of course, exceptions, and males are obviously physically stronger and able to lift quite a bit more than that. And as I said, Karula's not the biggest female around, so she tends to stick to those two smaller antelope species, and this area is ideal for them. These little monkey orange thickets, like we're driving past here, often hold duiker and steenbok, so we do find her regularly zigzagging through these thickets in this area. So fingers crossed. I'm quite confident we're going to have a little bit of Queen Karula luck this evening. And of course she does have two cubs. We haven't seen them in a while. Just making sure we don't want to miss any tracks. Now at the moment she's been keeping her cubs to the south, just outside of our traverse area. And there's a very good reason for this. And Karula is probably one of the best leopard mothers I've ever come across. She's only lost one litter that I know of. And the hyenas have moved their den from the western sections of Juma right to the area around the lodge, the Gallagher shortcut. These are all roads, by the way, Gallagher shortcut, Aubrey's, and it's basically where she used to keep her babies in that little river system there. So she's now moved south to avoid those hyenas, and hyenas pose a very big threat to young leopard cubs. So I'm pretty confident that's why she's staying further to the south and a little bit out of Juma. But as those cubs get older and more adept at avoiding potential predators like hyenas and lions, I think she was going to move them back onto Juma a bit more regularly. So fingers crossed that they're going to be around on this sunset safari. So we're coming up to the treehouse waterhole that does have a natural seep. So water comes through from the ground there. From this crest here, the water flows under the ground and then pops out. Oh, just get. And there possibly some animals who've come to take advantage of that seep. And here we go, a Burchell's zebra or plains zebra. That looks like a stallion. Difficult to say from here, but I'm just judging from the thickness of the neck. It looks to be a male. They always look rotund and fat and healthy, but that's because of their digestive system. It's a hindgut fermenter. They create a lot of gas, so they always look quite fat and healthy, and the only real way to tell if a zebra is out of condition is if their mane starts flopping, and that zebra is in prime condition, mane standing lovely and erect. Oh, there's some kudu behind. I think I just saw some. Let's just move forward a bit. So now in the early afternoon, quite a few animals might be taking advantage of that water. So it's been not that hot, but reasonably warm for a winter's day. And I think they might be coming to have a little sip. Also around these seep lines is the last of the good grass. So even if we look through this little gap towards the zebra there, how's that, Jean-Ray? A little bit further forward. There we go. So there we go. You can see those zebras, and you just have a look at their feet. There's the odd tuft of green, and of course that's from the underground water that moves through this area. And this dry season, we're going to have quite a lot of animals focusing on these seep lines. And if you look very carefully, just to the left of that zebra bottom, and directly behind it as well, you'll just pick up the slightest little bit of movement, and there are some kudu hiding in and around there as well. There we go. Now I'm hoping that not only have the zebra and kudu come to take advantage of that little seep in the green grass. Now, of course, wherever there's good grass, there's going to be lots of animals like kudu and impala and zebra. And wherever there's lots of animals, there's lots of animals that eat animals, obviously never in the same densities. So it's always a good idea to look around your prey species densities for predators, because they are going to be attracted into these areas. At least we know we've got lots of animals helping us look for leopards. So most of these animals will alarm call when they see a potential predator like a leopard or a lion. So often that's how we find animals out here. Your ears are quite often far more important than your eyes. Listening for the bark of a kudu or the snort of an impala to lead you to the right direction where that predator might be. We're just going very, very slowly and very carefully along here, hoping to find that perfect leopard pug in the road. Oh! We do have one other animal, and he's going to be keeping everyone out of the seep. Very selfishly so. But as you can see, there we go. One retired gentleman, old buffalo bull, having a snooze in what tiny little bit of water there is left in this natural seep. But while we leave him to snooze and continue our search for the Queen of Juma, Jamie's got an animal that really likes what comes out of the big black backside of a buffalo.
One of the last of the season. I heard Brent describing exactly what this particular type of beetle enjoys. This is an absolutely enormous dung beetle that he's coming for a walk. Wow, that was fast. Hello. There we go. Sorry, buddy. Walking up my arm there. Look at how big he is. He's absolutely enormous. Oh, no, don't disappear. And these beetles, pound for pound, one of the strongest things that we get out here, and he's very much in the mood to escape us. He found himself in our car. Oh, here we go, buddy. Can I pop you on the dashboard so that everybody can have a look at you? It's okay. It's all right. Okay, keeping him still is going to be next to impossible. Obviously, he's now decided that he's feeling like he wants to be elsewhere, possibly in his natural environment, off searching for elephant or buffalo dung. But we can actually, in a moment, have a look at the residue of the dung that is all around the back of the leaves, not the leaves, the wings and the casing of this particular beetle. That's of course if he decides he ever wants to stay still. He spent ages resting on my hand. We're using his feelers to clean away his face. There you go, it's all around the back of his abdomen. Okay, let's put him back, I think. Shame, he clearly wants to be out of the car and away from human contact. I don't want to drop you down into the bowels of the car though, mister. Hold on, I've got to disentangle myself first. Alright, let's return him, I think, to the wild. But isn't he just incredible? One of the biggest dung beetles that we would get out here. And I said that pound for pound, they are one of the strongest animals out here. Alright. Trying to see if there's a nice fresh pile of dung for him to go on. But unfortunately, I don't see anything in this vicinity. So we'll just pop him down here and let him do his own navigating. There we go. Off he goes. Very determined, heading off somewhere in a general direction with much enthusiasm. Alright, so pound for pound, one of the strongest beetles, and in fact probably one of the strongest organisms that we get out here. If a dung beetle were the size of a human, they would be able to pull, sort of on a winch system, let's say you had a pulley system set up, they'd be able to lift 8 tons of weight if they were the size of us. Isn't that absolutely mind-boggling that that is what they are capable of doing? And if you have any questions or comments or any experience having met dung beetles in your time, and some of you may well have in your travels to Africa, you can send through those stories on #SafariLIVE on Twitter, or you can email through to questions@wildearth.tv. And of course, the one particular memory I have of dung beetles was when I first started working full-time as a guide. And we were very fortunate, and quite often the perks of working as a guide is that you'll get what's known as bed nights, where you can bring your family or whomsoever you choose to come and visit you. And in this case, I brought my entire family along, and I brought them through in mid-December, which of course is our rainy season. I brought them through in mid-December, insect season. There's just insects, bugs, arthropods absolutely everywhere. And they were squealing every time a dung beetle came whirring past. And those big ones, look, those big ones make a lot of noise, and they're very big, very solid things. They can be, I guess, if you're not used to them, quite terrifying. But they're one of my favorite things to look at just by watching the way that their legs move. And I've sat and made a slow motion video of the way in which dung beetles walk and the way that they lever one side and the other, and the incredible power that gets them going. Lots of different types of dung beetle, but of course all united by the one solid factor that, as the name suggests, they are removers of dung. And Minnie Echo, who is one of our newer viewers, would like to know, or has somewhat questioned my actions there and said, wait, that thing hangs out in dung and now you're touching it. Very valid point. There are certain dung beetles that are attracted to the scat of predators that I would be very reticent to touch or to handle in any way, shape or form. But that particular dung beetle likes to hang out in herbivore dung. And herbivores, as you well know, pretty much entirely grass-based. And Minnie Echo, I'm afraid to say that out here none of us are particularly squeamish when it comes to dung. For example, that dung in the middle of the road there, which is elephant dung. And I'm quite happy, and in fact shall hop out and break it open for you so that you can have a look at what an elephant eats. But that being said, it's very important to differentiate between different types of dung. The reason I say that is because predator scat can carry some really serious, really unpleasant germs and parasites. Very often they're teeming with worms. And you'll find that none of us will touch predator scat with our bare hands. However, herbivore dung, on the other hand, has no such worries. This is actually quite nice and fresh, probably from this morning. So whilst it might make our hands a little bit dirty, it doesn't carry anything really in the way of parasites. Now, this is something that as South Africans we've just grown up doing. We've got a pile of ellie dung, complete with grass and with leaves, if you look closely. And I have to admit, I actually really like the smell of elephant dung. Now, we'll always wash our hands straight after drive, so there's no fear there. But there's no danger of being in any way, shape or form infected by any parasites or anything like that. In fact, most of us have relatively strong immune systems. Here's something to compare it with, just because it's here and I saw it, in complete contrast to that elephant dung we were looking at. This light-colored, very finely digested ball is from a scrub hare. The interesting thing, of course, about the rabbit and the hare family, if we break this open, you can see also a herbivore. You can just see the grass in it. The interesting thing, of course, about them is that they will eat their own dung as a way of redigesting the plant material. So that's why it's much, much finer than the somewhat inefficient digestive process of the elephant. Obviously, I'm not going to go and stick my hands in my mouth now, and I'm not going to be touching my face, but other than that, we are relatively comfortable with the whole idea of having a look at and examining dung, and for good reason. Dung tells us a great deal about the animal. You can even, with elephant dung, sort of roughly guess at the age of the animal. If you've got really big chunks of food, you know that it is an older elephant whose teeth are starting to wear down. And this particular elephant has left us with all kinds of clues as to its presence, including roadblocks. Let's scoot around here. I would get out and move it, but of course some of our regular viewers are very well aware of what happens when I try to do that. This particular tree might prove to be impossible. I am, of course, talking of the time that I fell over trying to move a tree out of the road. It was terribly funny, except that it wasn't for me. Actually, it was funny for me. Heidi, you were wondering about our little dung beetle, or our big dung beetle, whether or not scarabs are the same thing as dung beetles. And yes, the scarab beetle and the dung beetle, the scarab is a type of dung beetle. Of course, the scarabs famously not necessarily worshipped, but they were treated with a great deal of respect by the Egyptians. There's about 8,000 different types of dung beetle. Some of them are dung ball rollers, so they'll roll a ball of dung and then lay their eggs inside it and bury it. And there are some that dig straight down, and there are some that lay their eggs in a dung ball itself. So they all have different approaches to their natural life cycle. And in that way, they kind of reduce the competition amongst the different species. But that's why it's so important, if you ever go and visit the Kruger National Park, particularly in summer, but ideally all year round, if you see piles of dung in the road, one pile of elephant dung could have up to 500, maybe even more dung beetles in it. So if you come past and you drive straight over that, you are guaranteed to kill some of those dung beetles. So if you can, you find yourself driving yourself around the Kruger National Park, please be sure to try and avoid the piles of dung wherever you can. Something that we definitely try to do absolutely whenever possible. And Monster VB, you were wondering about rhino beetles, which is actually a type of dung beetle. You're wondering if it ever gets as big as that dung beetle that we had there. Yes, it does. You get two. You get the rhino beetle and then the triceratops beetle. And I'm going to, in a moment, I'll have a look for pictures of both in my insect book. But the triceratops obviously has 3 horns, whilst the rhino beetle has 1. And yes, both of those I have seen roughly the size of that dung beetle that we picked up earlier. incredibly large and incredibly powerful. And definitely a really lucky find this late in winter. And I told the story of my poor squealing family when confronted with the plethora of dung beetles that arrive in the bush in the middle of a normal rainy season. Regina Hart, you were wondering whether or not I don't get the heebie-jeebies handling all kinds of creepy crawlies. And the answer is no, I don't. And weirdly, I never have. I understand why people do. And my little brother is completely the opposite. I mean, we've been raised with exactly the same background, yet it would be a very surprising situation indeed to find him with an insect crawling over his hands, particularly an arthropod, an arachnid like a spider. That, in fact, would be next to impossible to find. And I don't know, I really don't know what it is. I've never had a major problem with it, but there is an exception. It is my one weakness, my one actually almost irrational fear, the thing that makes the hairs on the back of my neck crawl, and I know it's irrational and I'm working on it, and it doesn't mean that I don't find them fascinating, but centipedes and I don't have a very easy relationship. I don't like them very much, let's put it that way. I'm aware that it is my problem and not theirs, and I'm aware that they are incredible creatures. But for some reason, there's just something about centipedes, and I don't know where it comes from. Millipedes are absolutely fine. Look, centipedes are venomous, and their bites hurt, so maybe it's not that irrational. But I'd sooner be faced with a snake than I would a large centipede anywhere in my living space. I'm quite content to watch them, as long as they're not on top of me. I think it's just one or two experiences with surprise centipedes crawling out and over my leg and over my foot and so on. Whoa. Bobbing our way ever so gently over the bumps in that road, and we're just going to do a quick cross. So basically this is the main road between Djuma and Arathusa, and the main passage from the gate that enters into the northern Sabi Sands. But we're just going to go across here very quickly, since it is a main road and there is somebody that is coming up very rapidly behind me. I just wanted to duck ahead so that we didn't cover the lens in dust. Dave, at some point we might need to pop the antenna back up again when we hit maybe when we go back onto Arathusa. What I was asking Dave for there, oh, hear that wind, it's like yesterday afternoon all over again. There we go, timed that well. What I was basically asking Dave to do is that in the process of our live safaris, you can imagine there's a great deal of technology involved in bringing you something that is live straight from the African bush. And that means we drive around in vehicles with antennas sticking out of them. And of course those antennas have to be flexible so that we can duck underneath low-hanging branches and the like. Every now and again they just kind of go down and accidentally stay down, which we definitely don't want as we come through towards Red Dam. Now bear with me for one moment. I need to get onto the Game Drive channel just to update everybody and let them know that I am here, and then I'm going to be following up on those lions, just so that we don't come as a surprise to them. Good afternoon, I'm Jamie, WildEarth. I'm just following up on those Impala around Red Dam. Okay, copy. I was one of the last people to leave them. They were on the western side of the dam wall, just north of the pump house. Copy, no problem. See you there. Okay, so there we go. Just giving an update, letting all of the vehicles know that we will be arriving shortly at where we last left those lions. Well, the question on everybody's minds is, are they still going to be there? Or will they have decided to hunt the buffalo once again? Wouldn't be the first time the Inkuhumas have hunted in the middle of the day. And as lionesses, they are far more likely to do so than the male lions are. They're much lighter, which means that they're much more nimble, but also don't overheat as much. They might have been trying to lull the buffalo into a sense of false confidence. Unfortunately, with only 3 of them, they really did have their work cut out for them. Just in terms of numbers, tackling a large buffalo herd with several big buffalo bulls. Most of you will have seen or heard of buffalo fighting back and chasing lions away, and that is actually relatively common. Buffalo, unless they panic, if they band together, are more than capable of taking on 3 lionesses. We're just checking really carefully here. They had moved to the other side of the dam wall, but that doesn't mean that they didn't come back to have a drink. We've just arrived at Red Dam, and we're just going to go straight on past and back to where we left those lions. It's taken us about half an hour to go from across to Arathusa and across to Red Dam, but that's because we've been stopping to look at things along the way as the crow flies. Not terribly far. We've gone from the western side of Djuma to the eastern side of Arathusa very rapidly. In terms of distance from our home base to where we are, probably only about 2.5, maybe even less, maybe about 2 miles that we've covered. There you go. It's got to be a little bit gentle with Rusty at the moment. Rusty's awaiting some car parts to keep her running nicely. Just means that you've got to take the bumps a little bit slowly. Now, I have to admit, every time I come along here, I will always think of the sighting that I had with the Inkuhumas almost a year ago. Not quite a year. Last year, August. It was the last time I ever saw the one subadult female alive. And we'll go into that story in a little bit more depth in a moment. There should be lions right there. However, there are not lions right there. In fact, that shade patch is devoid of lions. And John, 13, who is a new viewer, you were wondering if I have ever seen any big cats. Not right now, but I mean, it's only been about 5 hours since I saw my last big cat. Yes, we do see big cats. We see them on a regular basis. Leopards and lions are our 2 main characters of our live safaris, but there's also a cheetah as well out here. So 3 of some of the biggest cats in the world. You naughty lions. Aha! Hey, I think we're in luck. Please don't be a log. Please don't be a log. I will be terribly embarrassed if you're a log. Please don't be a log. That's not a log. That is a lion. I'm sure that is a lion. Yes, it moved. Logs don't move. Keep going, Dave. Keep going right at the back. All right. In the back there. There, I think just a bit to the right, on the right of your screen. That's a lion. There is a lion there. Promise, there is a lion there. I'm going to take you to go and see it. Phew. There's always that moment when you stop dead and you go, it's a lion and it's a log, and then you have to laugh at yourself. Very easy to do when you're specifically looking for something. Alright, let's try. I want to just be quite delicate in where I off-road to get to these cats, just because it is quite a sensitive area. No, there is a lion in here. I promise you there is a lion in here. Now where's it gone? She's lying in here. It's so tricky to tell exactly where she is. Alright, in we go here. Oh, no, we don't. Running on 5 cylinders means the odd stall every now and again. It's not just me, I promise. Okay. Let's sneak in, through and around the stump. Dave, I need you to keep your eyes peeled because I saw a lion, but I don't know exactly where I saw it. She's lying on her back. Where is she? Come on, big girls. Okay, everybody watch heads. Oh, goodness. You good there, Dave? Well done. Careful, everybody. Ha! Yes! I'm not mad. There you go. Hello. Hello, big girls. Aren't you gorgeous? Aren't you well hidden? Yes. Thank you for rolling over at the exact moment we came past. She exposed the white of her belly, which made life a little bit easier to spot her. Who have we got here? The younger adult female. This morning it was Amber Eyes, one of the other young adult females, and then the sub-adult female, who is now almost at the point where I think we could probably start calling her the adult female. This quarry bush and I are very much in close proximity to each other. We find ourselves very much in each other's personal space. Let me just pop that there. Sorry, girl. Was that a bit confusing? Now, we do have a lot of brand new viewers joining the show over the last few weeks. So I'm going to tell you the tale of this incredible lion pride from when I first started seeing them, which we'll have to transport ourselves back to almost a year, when the Nkahuma Pride were 8 members strong. They had just gone from 9 members to 8 members. An adult female had been killed by an almost unknown, quite mysterious group of young males called the Birmingham Boys that had only occasionally ventured into our territory. Now, the Nkahumas consisted of 5 adult females, 2 sub-adult females, and 1 sub-adult male called Junior. And they moved about this area in relative peace and were dominated by 2 enormous male lions known as the Matimba male lions. And then, just after I started working here, I was fortunate enough to enjoy several sightings with them. I remember Brent excitedly calling me after his first kill when they killed the buffalo live on the Sunset Safari to tell me all about it. And I watched them, as I mentioned earlier, playing just about 500 meters from here. The 2 sub-adult females pouncing and playing with each other, absolutely adorable. And then the Matimba males were somewhat unceremoniously pushed out by this coalition of young males known as the Birmingham Boys. 5 young males that pushed in from the north decided that they were big enough and brave enough to start establishing themselves a territory But because there were 5 of them, they started this push through whilst still very young. Some of them were only around 4, but they had the advantage of numbers. Oh, flopped down. And the Nkuhumas suddenly found themselves terribly at risk. Now, they pushed the Matimba males out south towards Londolozi and promptly established themselves as the dominant male. Now, we're still not entirely sure what happened, but over the course of the next 2 months, they killed 1 adult female from the Nkuhuma pride, quite possibly one of the sub-adults' mothers. She may well have been trying to protect them, particularly since they had a sub-adult male that was nearly adult age. However, they killed her. They killed the sub-adult's sister, the sub-adult female, leaving the Nkuhumas running scared and somewhat depleted. However, over the next few months, as lions do, they accepted the Birmingham boys. They mated with the Birmingham boys. Their sub-adult male left, as was sort of going to inevitable anyway, since he was of the right age and it was time for him to move on. He left. He's come back every now and again to pay a visit. We haven't managed to see him, but he has been around. He's doing very well for a young male all on his own. And now, only now, do we see the first products of the Birmingham boys' new reign in the form of 3 little Nkuhuma cubs that are pottering about Torchwood as we speak. Absolutely wonderful news, which is why we find these 3 lionesses all on their own. One of their members is busy wandering about with a Birmingham boy, just furthering the peace deal, let's put it that way. In other words, she is mating with him somewhere. We don't quite know exactly where. And then, of course, the one mother tucked away somewhere safely. I just need to get onto the Game Drive channel just to let them know that I have found them. Our stations, I've relocated these 3 Mafazi Ngala just to the northwest of Red Dam. Just keep coming north from the pump house, you'll see us from the road. I don't think that these lionesses are going to be going anywhere anytime soon. So while we sit with them and watch them sleeping peacefully, Brent has a spectacular view for you.
Look at that stunning, stunning cloud, but that's not what we want to show you. We've come across a herd of ellies. We've just stopped a little bit far from them. We are going to move a bit closer shortly, but there we go. And, of course, Chandra had this wonderfully shot planned with this golden light, and then that large cloud came to rain on his parade. Fortunately, it's not raining on us, so let's get a little bit closer to these ellies so he can have a look. So, unfortunately, no luck in that area around Queen Karula. Oh, it's still there, Chandra. I can't believe it. The rainbow. So there's a rainbow, very unusual for this time of the year. I'm going to try see if we can show it before we get close to the eddies. Is there a gap there? Here we go. Look at that. Maybe there's a pot of gold called Karula at the end. But let's just enjoy these ellies while they're here. A nice big breeding herd. And we're going to go now have a closer look at these elephants. Probably about 30 here. Hello, elephants. There we go. We've got an adult female there feeding in front of us. If you listen carefully, you can just hear the branches breaking all around us. You can see the sharp shape in her head, more angular, and it's one of the ways to tell the difference between a male and female elephant. Sometimes with the young bulls it can be a little bit confusing, but with the adult bulls it's very easy because they are much, much bigger than a female. And you notice how she's completely stripping that little bush willow. Now, all the trees are going to be very important as we head further into this drought. going to be crucial for them. Oh, hello, there's a big cow, very big female elephant. And behind her is a little bundle of joy. Look at him. Still hasn't quite mastered the use of its trunk, probably about 4 or 5 months old. Oh, they are extremely cute. And we've got another one about to join us right in front of us here. Another female. There she is. She's just putting up her nose to have a sniff. She knows we're here. It's okay, madam. Now, under normal circumstances, quite a few of these bushes are not what the elephants would eat by choice, but because of the extremely dry weather we're experiencing, they will feed off a lot of sort of not first choice trees, which is actually quite good for the environment. Quite a lot of those little trees, like the monkey oranges, can encroach. We've gone through a really wet cycle of about 8 years, and I think we should be going through quite a dry cycle now. Let's try to get a bit closer, and remember, always put our vehicle into low range, 4-wheel drive. Oh. There we go. And what that does is keep the revs nice and low, very non-threatening sound. So if you make a lot of noise revving the engine, that elephants can sometimes perceive that as aggressive behavior. But if we just move nice and slowly, we can often get right into the center of the herds, although they are moving. Oh, look, there we go. Now, if it looks like a little boy, and little boys can often be quite curious, and they come to inspect us, and sometimes give us a little, no, not today, though. I was going to stick with Mom. Mom, don't leave me behind. So we're going to try and get into a better position so we can see these elephants. While we do that, let's jump back on board with Jamie and the Nkahuma ladies.
Alright, so we've got the lions still, and just bear with us one moment because there is another vehicle trying to enter the sighting, and he's just going to come through and go and find a good view. Right. Your vision's going to be blocked for the moment, but they will be back with us. We'll be able to see them again very, very shortly. Now, there's no sign of the buffalo moving about for a while, or at least since this morning. There's tracks absolutely everywhere, lots and lots of fresh dung about and tracks about, but they've obviously moved off further to the west. But I did hear something moving about in the drainage line, which could well have been, quite possibly even, an elephant. Something big, either way. I did hear voices saying that it was a buffalo, and that might have been what it was. And this morning it was a huge buffalo herd that they were chasing. I say huge like I have any idea as to numbers. It must have been somewhere in the region of 100 or more. But there were lots and lots of what we call dugger boys in that group. Big strapping males in their prime, ready to defend the herd, and when the female chased them, they scattered off in different directions, and there were just buffalo bulls everywhere we looked. Now, 3 lionesses would be very brave to take on a fully grown male buffalo. They'd found themselves probably somewhat at a loss as to how to go about tackling them. Now, in their prime, of course, with several members of the pride, along with Junior, back when he was still with them, they were and did, no, let's try and rephrase that. They were exceptionally capable, and they did hunt big male buffalo, but no more do they have the numbers. Since our cats aren't up to very much, Brent has some elephants that are performing beautifully for the camera this afternoon.
Now, if you have a look at that, we haven't moved, but this elephant cows come out of the bush, and she's not 100% relaxed. You can see the stiffness in her tail. So I'm not going to move. I'm not going to give her a reason to get too grumpy with me. But you can see she's now coming closer, and she's using that bush between us. She's raised her head, opened her ears. She has given us a little bit of a warning. Even though we haven't moved, she's now moved here. But what she has done is elephants often do this. They'll give you a sort of charge from behind a wall of trees, because it also makes them feel safer. And this is where a lot of people make a mistake in reading elephant behavior. If we had moved then, that could have incited a full charge out of her instead of just a little warning charge. So it's very, very important when you're dealing with elephants, because they are such big and strong animals, to be very confident in reading their behavior. And also, we're going to get a lot of elephants that aren't used to cars this year. So they're going to be coming in from the Kruger and the southern Manuletti, where there's not a lot of game drives because of the drought to the water. So we just have to be extra cautious and extra conscious when dealing with the elephants this dry season. But see, now she started feeding again. She's let us know she's here, and she's big and she's strong and she shouldn't be messed with, and she's still keeping a very careful eye on her, and that's one of the reasons I'm talking constantly. I'm also keeping my voice sort of very calm, not raising it too much, just so she gets used to the sound. And now if we look carefully through the bush, we can see her tail wagging already. So there we go. What could have been a potentially dangerous situation is now a completely harmless one, and the rest of the herd are about to come through. So Chitra in India, welcome again. You're also on the Sunrise Safari with us, Chitra. Would like to know, how do you gauge the age of elephants? So with young ones, up to sort of the early teens, it can be quite easy, but as they get a bit older, with adults it can be quite hard, especially with elephant cows from the age... Oh, there we go. Here's the one who's not relaxed again. You can see she's constantly sniffing us out. And she is eating now. And again now, just watch how she's raised her head. There's a little bit of stiffness in her ears and her neck that are all telling me that she's not 100% comfortable. But we are, where we are, we're still quite far away from her. We haven't moved towards her. We haven't moved into her space. So she's just very wary and very warily keeping an eye on us. So we're not going to move the vehicle. As I said, that can incite things. But you can see there's just that hint of stiffness in the tail. There we go. See it come up like that. So she's not happy. But again, if we moved now, it could be a lot worse than if we just sit still. So with most animals in the bush, the more movement you get, they're designed to chase things that move. That's why when you get charged, it seems totally counterproductive, but you got to stand still. Now, Chitra, back to your question about aging elephants. But if my machine decides to play along, machines, I don't know what's going on. It's supposed to just swiggle. It's not swiggling. Andre, why isn't it swiggling?
Your orientation is locked.
No, I don't think so. It never is. As you can see, this is quite new for me, getting involved in... it's frozen now. Okay, we'll just do it that way. It's not... There we go. Okay, so this is a nice little diagram for judging breeding herds or family groups. So if you have a look, we'll start at A, which is an adult female. So that's normally with females anything from sort of 20 on, even though they do reach sexual maturity at about 14, 15. So B would be a 15-year-old elephant female. C is a sort of 6 years old. So you can see they grow quite quickly between 6 and 15, and almost double in size. D is about 2 years old, so again, not quite doubling in size. And then E is an infant, a year or younger. So the rule with the babies is a little one, about a year, can fit under mom's belly. And then once they are older than that year, they can't fit under the belly any longer. Okay. we're just going to move a little bit forward, but a huge welcome to Parkway Elementary. My name's Brent Leo Smith, guys. I have Jean-Dre on camera. Parkway Elementary is our school for today, and it's Miss Littman and, oh dear, I've forgotten that one. I do apologize profusely. And Miss Atkins. And guys, we're sitting in the middle of a breeding herd of elephant. So welcome on your African safari. Ask me as many questions as you like, and I'll try answer all of them. So let's go a little bit further forward so we can look at the elephants. So while we try to find you a view of these elephants, Jamie has got the biggest cat in Africa.
Well, we have the biggest cat hiding behind the bushes. Yes, you guessed it. There is a female lion lying up behind there. In this case, giving herself a jolly good clean. Licking herself just like your pet cats at home do. Cleaning her fur, getting rid of any mud and maybe even ticks and other parasites that might be living on her. Isn't this incredibly exciting? You start off your safari, you've had some of the most famous animals in South Africa that you've seen. So a very, very warm welcome to the class of Parkway Elementary. My name is Jamie. I haven't introduced myself, but I'm trying to keep my voice nice and soft so that we don't disturb the lions. Now, I am Jamie, and I drive you around and I show you and tell you a little bit about the different animals. And behind me sits a man called Dave. And Dave operates the camera and he shows you exactly what those animals are up to, which at the moment is what lions do best in the middle of the day, which is sleeping very, very hard. And these 3 lionesses spent last night hunting buffalo. And this morning, actually, we even got to see them chase them and jump up on the back of one of them. But they weren't successful. They didn't manage to catch a buffalo. And now they are exhausted after their nighttime adventures. Now, don't forget that what you are seeing, what you're watching on your screen, is happening right here in real life, all the way on the other side of the world in South Africa. And these are proper wild lions. I said that I was talking nice and softly, just so that we don't disturb them. And Mrs. Ski, please excuse the tree that is currently sitting on top of my head. I had to park here so you could see the lions. You wanted to know if the lions are afraid of loud noises. Yes, they are. If you do find yourself ever that you've accidentally walked across to a lion in the middle of the bush, maybe you've been tracking something, and they get a bit cross and they start to growl at you, and if they come running towards you, the first thing you do is make a loud noise, clap, shout, make yourself big and scary. Because lions, with their very, very sensitive hearing, they are afraid of loud noises. But because these lions have grown up their whole lives from when they were tiny, tiny, with vehicles driving tourists to come and see them and to watch them live their wild lives, means that they are very, very used to the sound of vehicles. So the sound of vehicles doesn't bother them at all. But if we were to start shouting, or if Dave were not able to control himself and maybe coughed really, really loudly, which I don't think he's going to do, then you'll find that the lions would look up and possibly even startle and move away from us. Because remember, wild lions are actually really scared of human beings. We are not on their menu. Lions do not instinctively hunt people. They do not instinctively want to eat people. They are more afraid of us than we are of them. Even though a lion is probably sort of guessing at, you guys are around 7 to 8 years old. So these lions are probably between 4 to 5 times your weight, your body weight, if not even more so. So we're talking about close to 200 pounds, no, even more, sorry, 300 pounds of animal. And Ali, this is a very young lioness. I know it's hard for you to see since you can't see her face. This is one of the youngest lionesses of this pride. This pride is called the Inuma pride. And there's actually usually 5 lionesses. This is the youngest. But Ali was wondering, how long do lions live for? And the answer is the females will live a little bit longer than the males. The females usually live up to 12 or 13, but they can live all the way up to 16 years old. Sometimes even more, but that's very, very unusual. But the males on the other hand, because they have to compete with other males for access to territory and for the right to mate with the females, to pass on their genetics in the form of babies, the males actually have a shorter life expectancy and probably average around 10 years old. So kind of like really big breeds of dogs that have relatively short lifespan. The lion's life is comparable in that sense. So not quite the 50 to 60 years of the elephants that Brent started off with this afternoon. And when you see them like this, they're almost sweet and cuddly. But Miss Littman, absolutely not. We would never ever touch the animals. Certainly not the lions. They would not take kindly to it at all. But Miss Littman, all of the animals that we see in this area are wild animals. And for me, that's the way that these animals should be. And we never touch them, we never cuddle them. And a lot of places that actually allow that kind of thing with wild animals are actually relatively unethical. It's not a good thing to be able to touch a wild animal. A wild animal should be completely wild. The lions, leopards, if anything is touching you, you're in big, big trouble. Sometimes the things that we do touch, we might touch the insects or maybe even frogs or reptiles if we have to move them away from our living quarters, particularly if we have to catch snakes and move them out of our bathroom, something like that. But otherwise we never ever touch the animals, and the animals certainly don't ever want to touch us. So although they look cuddly and furry, we definitely won't be going to give them a hug and scratch them behind the ears. And I have to tell you something else about lions. They really are incredibly smelly. I've been fortunate enough to touch lions through the line of my work when the lions have been anesthetized by a vet, whether it be to fix up an injury or to move them to a different place. And speaking from experience, lions smell terrible. And in fact, you often don't want to handle them unless you've got gloves on. We're going to see if we can't get you a little bit of a better view of these 3 lionesses as the sun comes out. But while we're with the sleeping largest predator, Brent is still with the largest animal that you'll find out here.
Welcome back, guys. We're still with the breeding herd of elephants. You can see that some of them are crossing the road in front of us. They're going to stop to eat a tree right next to us. So they're probably about 10 feet away from us. There we go. You can see here we are. There are the elephants. There's more elephants behind us and in the bush over there. So they're all slowly moving into this very thick bush where we can't follow them. Well, a big hello to Angelo and Adrian, who are wondering whether elephants are in danger of being extinct. Not in this area, but in other parts of Africa, they are under quite a lot of pressure. But in the Greater Kruger National Park, we have a really healthy number of elephants, and their population is increasing. So it looks like those are the last 2 stragglers from the herd, unless you can see any more behind us, Chandra. So I think there might be some more down near a waterhole close by. Oh wait, we've still got some more right here. Hello, little guys. So there's 2 little guys about 2 years old. Yes, you're very brave, very scary. There we go, you can see them feeding. So they will still drink their mother's milk, but most of their nutrients, even at this young age, is going to come from feeding. So they will eat lots of leaves, grass, and even some of the woody parts of plants. And it's raining. That is very strange. It's raining quite hard. Where's this rain coming from? There's not even a cloud above us. There's one cloud. This is very strange weather. We hardly ever get rain in the winter, and we've had it for a couple of days. I think it's going to blow over. Oh, there's big rain behind us, though, to this east. This is very weird weather. And I think we'll look at the eddies while we can before they move off. They're about to go into a thicket where we won't follow them. There we go. So, Ava's wondering, why are an elephant's ears so big? Let me move forward a little bit, Ava, and I'll answer your question. Well, Ava, it's their air conditioning system. So they're big and they're dark. So, of course, that does sometimes attract a lot of heat. So they use their ears as their air conditioning system. So in those big ears, Jean-Andre is going to show them to you right now. You can see, well, that's a smallish ear because it's a baby. But in that big ears, we'll wait for it to flap. And if we look behind the ear, there's a big network of blood vessels. So what happens is a big adult elephant can pump 2 gallons of blood into their ears. And that blood is hot from being run around inside the body. And when they flap the ears, it cools the blood and sends cool blood back to the body. So imagine that, 2 gallons, just under 9 liters of blood in an elephant's ears. So it's their big air conditioning system. And a very, very effective one. So we watch, there we go, an elephant wagging its tail, and your sir is wondering why. Well, the same reason most animals wag their tail, yes sir, and that's to keep the buzzing flies away. So it helps them to keep flies away, and that is why they wag their tail. Most of our animals out here, apart from the cats, wag their tail to keep insects, biting insects away from them. And there we go, see that very special nose an elephant has, and there's about 100,000 muscles in an elongated trunk. Adrian would like to know, what are the different types of elephant? Well, Adrian, the main 2 types of elephant are the Asiatic elephant and the African elephant. Now, within Africa, we have 2 variations of elephant. We have the savanna elephant, which we've just been looking at, and we have the forest elephant. Now, they can interbreed, so they are quite closely related. The savanna elephant is much bigger, and it lives in open grasses and mixed woodland like we're in now. The forest elephant lives in very thick rainforest in the Central African basin, and they are much smaller and their trunks are slightly different, so they don't live in the jungle where they live. But the Asiatic elephant is a bit different, so that lives in India and Asia, and the African elephants are a bit bigger. But one of the very things, if we have a look, is with the trunks of the Asiatic and African elephants. The top one is the Asiatic elephant, and it's only got one little prehensile tip. Prehensile means moving, and so it's not as dexterous as its African cousin. You can see there's the African, and so it's able to use that trunk to grab lots of different things. So that's one of the main differences, and of course the size and shape are a bit different, with the African being quite a lot bigger. Those elephants have moved off, so we're going to do the same, see what else we can find for you guys out here in the African bush. While we do that, Jamie's still got those big cats to show you.
Look how lucky we are to have we can see their faces clearly. Now, we're not going to get the spot all to ourselves. There are other people that want to come and see the lions, and there's lots of other things for us to go and find. But for now, we can enjoy watching them looking very peaceful and very contented. All three of them fast asleep. What's incredible, though, is how fast a lioness can go from being fast asleep to being a hunter in a split second. And Lexi, although it looks like it, lions do not hibernate. They don't need to, because it never really gets cold enough for lions to have to go and sleep through the winter. So not like bears or any of those kinds of, fast asleep. Not like any of those sorts of animals, because it's never cold enough here. Lions don't hibernate, and they are, in theory, they're awake all through the year. But the interesting thing about a lion is that it can sleep for up to 22 hours every day. So 22 hours out of every 24. Now that makes them sound kind of lazy, actually, but that's not really the case, because when they are active, they're incredibly active. And hunting for them takes lots and lots of energy. So they need to rest whenever they can. And at the moment, these poor girls are actually quite hungry. They haven't eaten in a couple of days, and they need to catch something tonight to make themselves feel a bit better and a bit more energetic. But the biggest reason why lions are so sleepy during the day is because they get far too hot very, very quickly. So a lioness likes to spend her time sleeping in the shade. Ramaya, you were wondering, do the lionesses always, or the lions always sleep on the ground? Almost always. And especially in this particular area where there's plenty of shade for them to find a comfortable sleeping spot, they will sleep on the ground. There are places in Eastern Africa, so Kenya, Tanzania, where the lions are actually famous for climbing up and sleeping in trees. First of all, because it gives them a nice view. They can lift their heads up high and look for prey. But maybe because there it's sort of a grassland, and there's not as many trees, not as many shrubs for them to sleep underneath. So by climbing the trees, they find a nice comfortable spot where the wind blows over them and they've got a little bit of shade. But here, almost always, you will see the lions sleeping on the ground. And Chimera, you've noticed something on the lions, and you were wondering if they are marked in any way to keep track of them. And these lionesses aren't, but there are lions in the Kruger National Park that do wear collars to help to keep track of them. And throughout Africa, there are certain researchers that will put a very special collar on an animal that doesn't affect their movements in any way. But what it does do is it allows them to track the animal through radio waves and through GPS coordinates. Okay, Mira, I haven't spotted what it is that you've seen on them, but what it could be is maybe just some scratches, a little bit of blood. It's very easy as a lion to get injured in some way, whether it's from trying to hunt and maybe getting kicked by buffalo, or maybe getting attacked by the horns of the antelope they're trying to hunt as it tries to defend itself, or even from conflict with members of their own pride. So lions don't have very good table manners. It's kind of whoever's strongest gets to eat the most, and they growl and they scratch at each other and they bite at each other to make sure that they get the best possible spot at the dining room table. And with lions, the kids eat last. So lion cubs, because they're not big enough and strong enough to fight for their spot at the carcass, they kind of have to wait until the adults have finished, and they will eat the scraps. And hello to Georgia. You were wondering about whether or not lions only eat meat, and if they ever get fat or overweight. And the answer is yes, they only eat meat. Sometimes you'll see them eating grass or a little bit of leaves. That's usually only because they're feeling like they've got an upset stomach. They're not feeling very well. That's when they eat the grass or the trees. Sometimes a lion might eat a little bit of fruit, but again, that's very, very unusual. Their stomach and their teeth are adapted for them to being totally carnivorous. In terms of getting overweight, not in the wild. There's no real animal that ever gets overweight. The one thing that lions are capable of doing, though, is they're capable of eating up to 100 pounds of meat in one go. So they basically stuff themselves until they absolutely cannot eat any more. And they'll do that, and then it will all be gone. In 3 days, they'll be back to looking skinny again and underweight again. It's just one of those funny ways that carnivores function. They stuff themselves whenever they can, because you never know when you might lose your kill or when they might miss out on a meal. So they've got to eat as much as they can whenever they can. Well, guys, we're going to have to move now, just because there is another person coming in, so that Ryan can come in and show his guests the lions as well. And we'll shift forward a little bit. How's it, Ryan? How are you? Thanks, man. Yeah, we'll just go forward and you can come in behind us. Just chatting to one of the other guides. And in the meantime, Simon, you were wondering if these lions were born in this area or if they were introduced. And the answer to that is that these lions were born here. And in fact, their mothers were born here, and their grandmothers were born here, and their great-grandmothers were born here. That is the amazing thing about a lion pride. All the females will all stay together in a pride like this, and in a group like this, and they will probably stay in the same territory. Even though there's 4 million football fields of wilderness and protected area here, they will stay in one place so that they can guard their special home. It's kind of like having your house in the city. This is their house in the city wilderness that they live in. And the females will live there the whole time. Absolutely fast asleep. See that? You can see that perfect grass color of their coats, which is what makes them so perfectly camouflaged to sneak through the grass and catch an animal unawares. And Xavier, lions are perfectly camouflaged, but Xavier is thinking about another animal with really, really good camouflage, and that's a tiger. And Xavier was wondering if lions and tigers are from the same family. And yes, they are absolutely from the same family. They're from a family called the Panthera family. And the Pantheras are roaring cats. Now that includes leopards, lions, tigers. Oh, somebody's rolling over. Paws in the air. Jaguars, panthers. Even the mountain lion falls under the Panthera family. Yes, Xavier, they are all part of the same family. And what links them all together is their ability to roar. We've got only a few more minutes to spend with these lions, and then we're going to leave. And one last question for now. Lexi and Kai. Oh, look at those teeth. Big, big teeth. And those teeth, together with those big paws and sharp claws, are part of a lion's arsenal, their weapons. So Lexi and Kai, you were wondering why their feet are so big. Because that's one of the ways in which they catch their food. Hey, they're those big, sharp teeth. yawn. So the big feet means that they can cover ground and that they can knock their prey over with a big slap from their paws as they chase them. And their ears are flapping constantly because there's lots and lots of flies around us. So the flies are irritating them. Look at them cuddling together. Oh, another big yawn. And it's only when you see their teeth like that that you can realize what scary predators they can be. Is she going to give us another proper yawn? Yes. The biggest predator that we have. She's yawning because she's getting ready to get up and possibly move to another sleeping spot. I don't think they're getting quite ready to leave just yet. All right, guys, we have to make some space for other vehicles to come and join the sighting so that their guests can have a magical experience. So while we sneak out, let's head back over to Brent.
So there we have a nice Impala ram atop a termite mound, surveying the open land around him. Now, Impala are the most numerous antelope in Africa, and they're an incredibly adaptable species. So here's a really interesting fact. Now, Impala, you could almost call him a walking fossil. He's been exactly the same for 1.6 million years. So they're fossils of an impala that will match the bones of an impala today. And that's because they're so successful. They are able to eat leaves as well as grass, where most animals will only eat one or the other. So they've filled an amazing ecological niche, and they've done very, very well. And in most parts of Africa, outside of the rainforests and deserts, you will find impala. Oh, we can see he's got some friends on his back, some red-billed oxpeckers. Those little birds are there eating the ticks. Now, it's not uncommon to see an animal doing that, especially something like an impala, standing on the high ground, slightly higher than the plain around him. Just gives him a little better view to check out if there are any leopards or lions about, or to make sure, in this case, that his ladies are protected from any other boys. Well, he looks like he's going down the other side of the termite mound. There are some impala up ahead, so we're going to see if we can get a closer view of them. So, as we were saying, the impala are everywhere, and they're also one of the most favorite things of a lot of things to eat. If you're the most common animal, you're going to be the most commonly eaten animal. So, impala are eaten by hyenas, lions, leopards, cheetahs, and in extreme cases, even some of the small cats like caracal might catch an impala. Now, we're going to go have a closer look at them now. There should be some up around on the next little road. And they've got some very interesting little features. And quite often when on safari, impala is the one that's overlooked because there are just so many of them. But if you take a little bit of time and you look even closer, there's some very fascinating things about impala. Now, there we go. We've got two young boys to look at here. Hello, gentlemen. So, there we go. Hello, boys. Now, if we look at the back, their back legs, right at the ground, you see that very black thing around his ankles. It's called a metatarsal gland. So it releases a pheromone when they are disturbed. So when an impala runs away from a predator, it kicks out those back legs and releases a pheromone that other impala can smell. And the reason for this is they are able to find each other after they've been separated after being chased by a leopard or a lion or a wild dog. Now, and then again, we look very carefully on their back sides, and you have a look, you can see there's a very dark and light patches. So you see the dark patches in the middle of the tail and also on either edge of his bottom. Now, flies in Africa mostly like dark colors. So they're attracted to those dark patches, which keeps them away from the soft bits between their legs and on their tummy. And you can see their tummy's nice and white. So those black stripes are there to help keep insects, biting insects, away from the soft parts of the impala's body. Now, Tyrese is wondering why they have horns. Well, Tyrese, it's for fighting. So the males will fight over the rights for females. So they will keep a group of females, and they have those horns so that they can fight and compete. These guys we're looking at here, they're too young to compete. They sometimes play fight as practice, but that big boy we saw earlier, he's definitely used his horns this year to keep away other males from all his ladies. So there's a water hole just up ahead, so we're going to go see if there's anything there. So there we go, there go those two young boys, and Demir's wondering, do they use their horns to fight off predators? Well, Demir, they do not. Impala are very fleet of foot, so they would much rather run away than try to fight a predator. The only animals that really fight predators are much bigger. So you'll find buffalo will fight predators, elephants will chase them, giraffe will sometimes fight off lions, hippo, so rhino, your bigger animals will fight. Most of your smaller animals will try to just get away, and they're relying on the fact that even though an animal like a leopard or a cheetah is faster than them, they're faster for longer. So a leopard can be very fast, but for a very short distance, whereas impala can be fast for a long distance. So they rely on being able to run further, faster than the predators can. So I wonder what's down at the waterhole today. Juan would like to know, are impala harmful to the vegetation? Not at all, Juan. They're actually quite, as I said, they fill an important niche, and they will feed off both grass and leaves, but also all animals that have to defecate add nutrients back to there, so it's important for the soil and the vegetation that the impala and other animals like buffalo and elephant are here. So no animal is truly harmful for vegetation. That's a very human way of looking at things. You must remember, we are dealing with a system here that's designed specifically to have all these animals in it, and they all have their little niche. So even an elephant pushing over a tree, we might see that as harmful. It's not. When that elephant pushes over the tree, it gives other animals a chance to eat off those leaves. It also makes homes for spiders, scorpions, burrowing, burrowing, all sorts of other creatures. Now here's a very important creature when it comes to the vegetation, and we've got some buffalo here, and this is another member of Africa's Big Five, and these are basically the cows of the bush, except they're a little bit more dangerous. We're just going to get around to have a look at him. Now these buffalo here are the old men. So they've, oh, he's blind in one eye. We're going to have a look at him now. We've seen him before. So, oh, he's got his good eye on us now. But so these are the old buffalo bulls. So they've been pushed away from the big breeding herds with the females and the babies because they're old and not strong enough to compete anymore. Now, buffalo are a very important ecological species, and because especially the big herds, not so much these old boys, so they tend to poop a lot, and they've got very nutrient-rich dung. So as they move through the bush, they basically fertilize, and they're a big lawn mowing machine. So when you've got 500 buffalo, it's like your whole own garden service, mowing your lawn and fertilizing it at the same time. So these old boys tend to spend most of their time around water holes like this, and they tend to don't move too far. When it gets dark, they move to the top of the hill where it's a little bit warmer, and then as soon as it gets warm again, they move down to the edge of the water hole, and they often spend the whole day sleeping, and if it's hot, even getting into the water and playing in the mud. So talking about the waterhole, there we go. There's another buffalo in the waterhole. I'm just going to move forward a little bit. Now, if you look carefully in the waterhole, there's always interesting things to find. So at this particular waterhole, we've got some birds. And these are called lapwings. Very pretty, black and white. Ooh, there we go. And they're called blacksmith lapwings from that sound you just heard. So a blacksmith is someone who used to work with metal. So hammering and making metal. In the old days, they used to make things like swords and armor and wagon wheels. And the sound of a blacksmith's hammer hitting metal sounds very similar to that. Dink, 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 dink. And you can see all the elephant dung around them. Now these guys you almost always find near water. Now what I'm really looking for and hoping to find was a terrapin. Now a terrapin is what you guys would call a turtle. So it's a little aquatic, I think that one's a rock. It's a little aquatic celian, which is the name of the family that tortoises, terrapins and turtles come from. And I can just see one's head. It's not the best view. He's over there. So look at that. That's just his head popping up. Oh, there's another one popping his head up. Now these guys can be quite a pain for the buffalo. So the buffalo come to try and get away from the biting flies, and they often come and lie in the water holes. But there's so many big juicy ticks and other things that feed on the buffalo that they are very, very happy to come eat off.
I think I'll go along Vietnam exit from the power line to the west. Check Impala plate.
So I just missed who asked that question there. But someone was asking who eats the buffalo. Kaylin was asking who eats the buffalo. Kaylin? Well, in this area, lions eat buffalo the most, but also hyenas. Big groups of hyenas can sometimes eat buffalo, but it's normally the lions that hunt the buffalo. And speaking about hyenas, it's getting cool. It's getting to the last little bit of the day, so I'm going to go see if we can find some hyenas. Okay, so before we leave, we can see on the back of the buffalo there's those red-billed oxpeckers that eat the ticks. And the whole class would like to know, do the birds live on the buffalo? Well, they spend a lot of time on the buffalo, but they don't live there. They'll have a nest, normally a hollow in a tree, where they'll go sleep at night. So they don't live on the buffalo, but during the day they do, because the buffalo is their meal ticket. So they get a nice meal. They're also very safe. There's very few things that's going to mess with the buffalo. So they'll often drink when the buffalo are in the water. They'll drink off the back of the buffalo. So they don't live there per se, but they spend most of their day there. Oh, there you go, the lapwings. So one of the few animals that lives in a den out here, out of the predators at least, are the hyenas. So I'm not sure if Jamie is closer. She might be going to the den. I'm just going to find out. I'll call her on the radio, but if she's not, we'll go have a look there as well. So let's see what Jamie is up to. So we have radios that we can talk to all the different game drives. So if they spot anything, they can let us know. If we spot anything, we can tell them. Jamie. Okay, so we're just going to find out where exactly Jamie is. If she's close to the hyena den, then we'll let her go there and we'll continue to look for leopards. I hear a really cool bird. Let's see if we can find it.
Range, Jamie.
Jamie, what's your position?
Company flight MOV Arizona Junction, parallel right north.
Okay, copy. You closer to Miska. I'll check film on step back towards Treehouse.
Copy. I'm happy to if you want to.
No problem. Go ahead. Okay, so Jamie's going to go see if she can find the hyenas at the den. We're going to keep looking for leopards. So we're looking for a female leopard who could be in this area. So what I was doing there is talking on the radio, and Jandre has spotted a big group of starlings in a moolah tree, making lots of noise. We've actually got multiple species of starling there. We've got lesser blue-eared starling and birchall starlings, and they make an incredible noise. So what they're doing as it gets cold is they're trying to sunbathe, basically, but the sun's popped behind a cloud. Oh. Listen to all the little noises they make. Very strange calls. Incredible funny noises from the starlings. So as we're saying, we have this radio, we talk to all the different game drives, and if they find something, they'll let us know. If we find something, we'll let them know. And that makes sure we all can see the best animals possible while we're out here. Finding animals is a team game. Oh, and it sounds like Jamie's found one of the big, great grey beasts that we get out here.
This is quite a sight. Not something that we often see. We've got a hippo out of water in the middle of the day. Usually these enormous animals are going to spend their day sleeping in the middle of a dam and only head out when night falls and it gets dark. But on a cool afternoon like this afternoon, and especially in winter, where they have to travel vast distances in order to get enough food, they could well be wandering out of water, and that's what this enormous creature is doing. He is 2 tons in weight, so 4,000 pounds, and absolutely enormous. This looks like it's a big ball, and I'm keeping a very close eye on what he's doing. He's not comfortable with us. I think he's going to take the option of running away, but we're just going to stay very, very ready in case he decides he wants to come and investigate. He's limping. He's been injured in some way, and a very sad situation at the moment is that we are in the middle of the worst drought in the last 100 or so years. And what that means for these enormous animals is that it's getting harder and harder for them to find a safe place to spend the day in a big dam. Our hippo has incredibly sensitive skin, which means they get sunburnt, and they get sunburnt even easier than we do. What they do is they secrete a red liquid that acts like a sunblock and flows over their skin if they are stuck in the sun. But rather than that, they'd rather avoid the sun and stay sheltered in the water, in the big watering holes of this area and in the rivers further south. I'll tell you a strange thing about a hippopotamus. Even though they look really big and really kind of slow, like they wouldn't be able to run anywhere, they are in fact very, very fast. What I mean by that is, look at one side of the room, now look at the other, and a hippo, now blink. Blink, close your eyes and open your eyes. In that time that it took you to go open, close, open, a hippo can run from one side of the room to the other. How many of you think you can run really, really fast? Okay, hands up if you think you can run fast. Promise you, a hippo is faster than any of us. Even Usain Bolt, at his fastest, would not be able to outrun a hippo running at full speed. So they are very, very quick. And I just need to turn this down quickly. Sorry about that. They are very, very quick. And they're also surprisingly nimble. In other words, a hippo could climb up and down the drainage lines without worrying about it. Even though it looks like there's a steep wall, a hippo could walk up and down here quite easily, despite the fact that they have short little legs. Now, hippos are quite grumpy animals, and especially at this time of year when they don't have very much in the way of food. A hippo only eats grass. Tristan, you were wondering whether or not the hippo have enough food to get through the dry season. I hope so, Tristan. I think most of them will be okay, but the buffalo, the zebra, the hippos, all of the animals that eat mainly just grass, they don't even eat leaves, they're going to really, really struggle in terms of getting enough food. He's come behind us, Dave. I've just been listening up to where he's going, making sure I keep an eye on him. Sneaky, sneaky. I see you, big boy. Okay, he's quite calmly feeding. So we're fine. I don't want to play games with him. If he wants us to go, then we will go very, very quickly. He's much bigger and weighs much more than the car does. But at the moment, he's perfectly relaxed. He's feeding. Now, what I want to do is I want to get onto the Game Drive channel and I want to warn the other guides that he is here. The reason I do that is because I said that hippos are really fast. They also can be quite grumpy, especially this poor guy. Just imagine, he's hungry, he doesn't have anywhere to hide in the water, he feels scared, doesn't feel safe, and that makes him quite dangerous to anybody walking about here on foot. So what I want to do is just get onto the Game Drive channel and let them know. Stations, just to let you know, there's one in Mvubu out of the water here on the Simbambili Arethusa cut line about 50 meters west of the parallel road North Junction. Okay. We're going to leave him in peace to go about his afternoon munching. And while we do, let's see what Brent is up to.
Guys, we've just found the biggest elephant tusker that Jean-Louis and I have ever seen in the Sabi Sands. We're trying to get a view of him. He's walking parallel to us. We just see this massive ivory sticking through the bush. He's going to come out into the open, hopefully, shortly. He's there, just behind that bush. There he is. Look at the size of those tusks. What a truly magnificent specimen. So he's probably around 40, 45 years old. And already there's a massive set of tusks. We're going to try and get more views of him, but he is in full must. So his hormones are raging at the moment. He's probably tracking a breeding herd. He's not stopping to feed either. So he's going behind that big termite mound. I'm hoping he comes out into the open again. Wow! Try to get up ahead, find a spot where I think we're going to get a window. So he should pop out about there. Or we can just see him there, he comes. I'm even going to pick up my camera for this. It's not every day you get to see an elephant with tusks like this. What a beautiful, beautiful animal. Well, we're going to just keep trying to keep up with them. Mrs. Ski would like to know, can their tusks ever get too long? When they get very old, I've only ever seen one in my life. But when he got really old, his tusks got really heavy. And he actually used to leave a track in the sand where he used to drag them. But normally, sometimes as they get towards their end of their life, those big tusks can become a hindrance. I've actually even seen one in the rainforest in Gabon sleeping by putting his tusks into the sand, so using them as a rest. But it is very unusual, and there's very few tuskers that size left in Africa. Fortunately, I think he's going to go down into that river system. So the whole class at Parkway would like to know, does it impede their eating? It can, but what it does do is it improves their fighting. So it gives them access to the best females. And generally, to carry ivory of that size, you have to be a massive animal. Now, a big male elephant weighs about 6 tons, 6,000 kilograms. And unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get another view of him, but I think I know where he's going. So I'm going to go have a quick look for the leopard, and then I'm going to give him a bit of time, and I'm going to loop around to the top of the hill where I think he might pop out. Now, that's just so exciting. It's not every day. You guys are really lucky you got to see a tusker of that size on your drive, and you've seen lions. So, wow, aren't you guys lucky? And keep the questions coming before the end of the drive, guys. We look forward to, we love having questions from you. Now, as it gets drier and drier, we're going to see a lot more elephants in this area because there's permanent water here, and there's not a lot of water to the west and to the east and to the north of us. So we're going to get this influx of elephants. They're already the most elephants I've ever seen in the Sabi Sands has been this year. But now we have an animal we haven't seen yet, and sometimes they look a little bit silly, and it's not the Impala next to the road there. It is a wildly beast, or a gnu, a wildebeest, and it looks like a big male wildebeest. There he is there. Hello, New. There we go. Wildebeest not being the most forthcoming, hiding behind a little bush at the moment, but he should pop his head up. Even though he looks a bit like a buffalo, he's not. He's an antelope. But quickly, before we carry on talking about the wildebeest, the whole class at Parkway would like to know, is the collection of ivory illegal? It is, unless you've got very special permits, which are very difficult to get. Mostly to own ivory is illegal. To pick up ivory in the bush is illegal. If we found an elephant tusk here, what we would do is bury it, take a GPS coordinate, and let the authorities know, and they would come collect it. We wouldn't touch it ourselves. But Parkway, really great to have Parkway Elementary on board with us this sunset safari, and you lucky fish, you guys. Lions and the biggest elephant we've seen this whole year here on SafariLIVE. So Parkway, thanks for joining us. Don't forget, you can watch us when you're not at school as well. Ask your teacher how to do that. But for now, we'll say toodles, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. And welcome back to everyone else. Always great to have the schools along, spreading the word of conservation through the youth. And now we're going to continue looking for the Queen, Karula, who is literally giving us the biggest runaround at the moment. I know Taxon and Hubert are also in that area looking for her, but she is proving to be as elusive as usual. But wasn't that incredible? I don't know if you guys were there. How massive was that ivory? It was so beautiful. I'm definitely hoping we're going to catch up with him again a little bit later. We're going to do a loop through here, have a quick look for Karula. Then I'm going to head up to the junction of Rebecca's and Zoe's Road. Hello, Nelson, for twice in one day. Aren't we lucky? He is looking a little bit worse for wear. Lots of ticks there. You can see the blind eye. Shame. Not looking too good, old Nelson. Lots of ticks around his neck, and he is looking a little bit skinny. But we know old Nelson, he's a survivor. Prove us all wrong and last the dry season. Okay, so I'm going to keep checking. So Karula's last direction from where she was spotted was northwest, and that's where we are now. Although none of us have seen any tracks yet. But as I said, I really want to get another view of that gorgeous elephant bull. So I'm going to do a quick loop through here, checking to see if there's any Karula tracks. We do have Hubert and Taxon looking in that area to the southeast of us. And I think we should just sneak up and get onto Zoe's Road and see if we can catch that big bull coming up the hill. Unless, of course, Karula's, the Queen of Juma's got different plans for us and decides to step out of the road in front of us, which she has done to me in this very spot. Strangely enough, this area was the first place I ever saw Karula when I joined SafariLIVE, and this corner was where Jandre and I first saw the cubs after she brought them back from the south. So this is Karula country we're driving through at the moment. So we're going to scoot on ahead to try and catch that big Ellie bull, and Jamie's got one of those gorgeous African sunsets to show you.
We're going to head through to the hyena den, but before we do, we just had to show you this incredible sky. And I think let's just enjoy this moment in silence for a little bit. Absolutely stunning. And the clouds this afternoon are lined in gold. Peeking out from below the clouds like a kind of reverse sunset. Beautiful. What the setting sun means is that we are running out of time to get to the hyena den and spend a bit of time with them. I think we'd better think about moving. In South Africa, we don't do clouds with silver linings, we do clouds with gold linings. Alright, I think it's time for us to start up and move on. Just listening to Brent chat on the Game Drive channel about his incredible elephant bull that apparently he has seen. Now, of course, I don't get to see what he's seeing, so I'm really looking forward to scrolling through some of your screenshots a bit later. Let's head out and go on towards the hyena den. See if we can't find the hyenas. Hopefully they have decided to pop out of their den and are playing nicely for us this evening. It's been a while since we've had a proper hyena den sighting. Just an update on those Nkuhumas while we were with them earlier, for those of you who were watching. The one female that was closest to us is pregnant. I'm almost certain of it, and I confirmed it with Ryan's tracker while we were just sitting there in that sighting. She is most definitely pregnant, so Amber Eyes might be. We discussed that possibility this morning. Margaret was asking about it, and I said that she might be, but it's still quite early stages, maybe about a month, maybe even just a month and a half, the stage that she is at. But that other female is, the way that she was rolling, her belly was kind of like she was shifting around a little bit, not uncomfortable, but almost as though there were babies moving and making her roll around to try and find a more comfortable position. And that, combined with the fact that her nipples are somewhat swollen, just a little bit, makes me think that she is indeed pregnant and that we can be expecting more little bundles of Nkuhuma fluffy lion cub joy. James, of course, has taken the somewhat controversial position that a baby lion, a lion cub, is the cutest baby animal out here. It's up to you to form your opinion, and you'll be getting to see them in the future, fingers crossed. I disagree. I think baby lions are absolutely adorable. And I'm sorry, a baby rhino is hands down the cutest little animal out here. They've got these enormous feet that are just far too big for their bodies, like little puppies, and these enormous ears, and they kind of flap around and dance and play and squeal, and really they just don't get cuter than that. Alright, to the hyena den with us, all the while keeping an eye out for our African wildcat that we saw here a couple of days ago. I must confess though, if I hadn't seen that African wildcat in the dark with the spotlight and the reflection of its eyes,
oh, Jesus. So we've come up to the top of the hill here and we're looking for that big elephant bull, and he was heading in this general direction. No sign. He might be a little bit further to the south, so we might loop a little bit back to where once we've come. Also, this is a great spot to sit and listen for alarm calls. So we've got this nice depression here, so if there's Impala alarming, even if they're quite far away, we're going to hear it from up here. And it is, to be honest, one of my favorite spots to just sit on Juma. I mean, just look at that. To quote Hemingway, miles and miles of beep, Africa. And it's amazing if we have a look at how the bush has changed as we head deeper into the dry season. Now, that is very unusual to see a big cumulus cloud anviling at this time of the year. You can see there's definite rain underneath. It has moved further to the north of us, so I think we are out of danger of getting wet. But I think we're going to come up here. I come up here probably 3-4 times a week, and I love watching how the bush changes. And it's still mostly green at the moment, but I think in about 3 weeks' time, we're just going to have those bursts of orange from the bush willows that have changed, and you'll see the evergreens, even in the depth of winter, where there's barely a leaf anywhere. There's the sort of bright green shining through. But no sign of that elephant. He might be a bit further to the south. So, hi, Roy. Roy would like to know, how cold is cold? How cold does it get at night here in the Sabi Sands? Roy, the coldest I've ever experienced in the Sabi Sands is probably about -1, but that is abnormal. I've only ever seen frost here once. Normally, we probably drop at the moment to a minimum of about 10-11 degrees Celsius. As we get June, July, it'd probably go a little bit lower, maybe 7, 8, 4 on a really cold morning. But it can drop below 0, but it's incredibly rare. 0, so that's 30 Fahrenheit. Not 0 Fahrenheit. If it was 0 Fahrenheit, I would be a popsicle, because I'm not a fan of the cold. I think the most uncomfortable I've ever been in my life was in Chicago in a snowstorm. We went to like -20 Celsius. You couldn't even open the door, there was so much snow outside. Now, I'm really hoping to get another sneak preview of that big Ellie bull. Definitely working with quite a bit of purpose, so he might be on the trail of a breeding herd, and we could see that he was in full must. For those of you who might not be sure what must is a heightened hormonal state that elephant bulls get into when they want to mate. And elephants are quite unusual. Normally, female elephants or female animals will come into heat, and then the males are just ready to mate all the time. But with elephants, the males have to be in must, and the females have to be in heat or estrus for them to mate, which is quite unusual in the animal kingdom. But now, speaking of another animal that's got unusual sexual orientation, let's go across to Jamie and one of her favorite creatures.
Here's one of my favorite, let's start that whole sentence again. Here's one of my favorite cute baby animals, as Brent was saying. We have arrived at the spotted hyena den, and they are still incredibly cute, even though at about 5 months old, they're no longer the little bundles of brown joy that we were watching at the start of the year. Difficult to see here which one this is. I think it might be November. They've got a little bit difficult to tell the difference between the various cubs at this point. The age and size difference, no longer that clear. No, I think that's one of the Decembers. Oh, dashing about. What's caught their attention? It looks like that's Madam, hidden behind the bush there, along with her twins, January 1 and 2. They were busy suckling. Oh, don't push your luck with her. That would be a very silly idea. You definitely don't want to antagonize the female that is the matriarch of this clan. And she regularly reminds both the cubs and the adults of her position in this group. Oh, shame. Little cub's actually quite hungry. But unfortunately, for the third cub on the left that's trying to push its way in, that is absolutely not going to happen. Unlike lions that allosuckle, In other words, they are willing to suckle cubs that are not their own. Spotted hyenas absolutely will not do that. There you go, you can see, just reminding that cub that it is not welcome in terms of feeding with her cubs. As to where this little one's mother is a mystery, probably out resting somewhere. I noticed yesterday when we paid a quick visit to the hyena den, the adults were looking quite hungry. They hadn't eaten in a while. They weren't sporting those beach ball-like stomachs that they occasionally do after a big meal. Madam has returned to feed her cubs. They'll be looking for any potential meal to go and scavenge from. Obviously they haven't had any luck recently. The hyenas are not fussy in terms of their diet. And Oki, you were wondering if hyenas will get sick from things that make dogs ill. And the answer is generally no. But I do see where you're going with this. Let's go first to the strength of a hyena's digestive system, and then we'll get to the more toxic things in a moment. A hyena has absolutely no problem in consuming a carcass that could be days and days old. It can be green, slimy, and crawling with maggots, and a hyena will be more than capable of dealing with it. They've got the most phenomenal immune systems. They've also got stomach acid that is some of the lowest pH of any stomach acid of any mammal. And what that means is pretty much everything is dissolved by the power of that stomach. It's one of the reasons why they can consume bones. And when you look through a hyena's scat, you'll find that there's no big chunks of anything. There's white powdery bone from the calcium in their diet. There's no hair, there's no fibers, they very seldom find pieces of hoof. It's because pretty much everything has been dissolved in that incredibly potent digestive system. But to take that a bit further in comparison to pet dogs, as those of you with canine friends or children will know, they cannot eat certain things, such as chocolate, for example. There's certain types of fruit, certain types of vegetables. Apparently avocado can be very toxic to them. Grapes are also quite bad for them. All those things that are on the list of no-nos in terms of what you can feed your dog. And Oakley, I was thinking maybe that is what you were referring to when you were asking about that. The truth is I don't know. As you know, hyenas are not dogs. They don't fall into the dog family at all. And I'm inclined to think that those digestive systems are quite capable of dealing with such things. But then again, it's not within their natural foodstuffs, and they're highly unlikely to come into contact with it unless they've managed to scavenge through a dustbin somewhere. Oh, and we're going to talk about those wounds on her in a moment. But just to finish off with Oakley's question, the answer is I don't know. I don't think it would be very good for them. But as wild animals, they do show an incredible resilience to all kinds of things. But since they're not dogs, I don't know exactly how their digestive system would respond to that. Not dogs and not cats, something completely different. Let's just have a look at Madam's shoulder here, because it's the first time we've been able to have a closer look at those injuries. We knew that she had a couple of bite wounds around her shoulders, but we didn't really get an opportunity to have a closer look. Puncture wounds like that, almost certainly teeth. That kind of position. I put forward the theory that they might have been, because it's not just Madam that's injured, Pretty and Corky are both sporting bite marks as well. Now, as the highest ranking members of this clan, as far as we know, that's unlikely to have been from other hyenas, might be from each other during a feeding frenzy, but again, not entirely sure. The hierarchy of hyenas is relatively well established in terms of their feeding order, so Madam would get to go first, and then Corky and then Pretty, or Corky and Pretty at the same time. I don't know exactly where they fall in terms of their hierarchy. I suggested it could have been in conflict with another hyena clan, maybe the hyena clan of Elephant Plains and Arethusa that we got to see properly for the first time eating that baby hippo carcass at the Arethusa Dam. That is pure conjecture on my part. It could have been conflict with lions, although to be honest, if a lion is close enough to get hold of a hyena like that, there's a good chance it would have killed them, unless maybe all three of them were together in a way that would outnumber the lions. Could also have been wild dogs, of course, but again, wild dogs tend to go for the backside of the animal. And the fact that something got close enough to Madam's fearsome jaws to bite her on the back of the neck suggests great courage, because you really don't want to be that close to a hyena's bone-crushing jaws. Now, Madam is named Madam because she is the head of this clan. She is the queen of this clan. But we do have a question through from one of the viewers as to whether or not a male could ever be the head of a hyena clan. Well, Neil, no, never. It's the fascinating thing, it is the unique thing about spotted hyenas. You do not find it in any of the other mammalian families here. Even elephants, where a female is the head of the herd, they are still dominated by any of the bulls that decide to come and join the herd for a while. Spotted hyenas, even the highest ranking male will be lower than the lowest ranking female once he's reached the adult stage. All male hyenas are submissive to females. Females have exceptionally high levels of androgen and testosterone in their bodies, which makes them bigger, stronger, weightier than the males. It also gives them pseudo-male genitalia, which really confuses matters. It's a completely bizarre evolutionary trait that the female's urinary tract as well as their vagina are fused, which means that they urinate, mate, and give birth through exactly the same passage. Something peculiar to spotted hyenas, in other words, unique to spotted hyenas. There's no other animal that shares that trait, not even the brown hyena, which is their closest relative out here. And we're going to discuss a bit more about that. I just need to answer to Mike, who's been calling me on the Game Drive channel. Go ahead, Mike. Good afternoon, Mike. Yes, I've just arrived. It is active. There's one fuzzy and 3 more pimpons out. Mike, we can put 2 vehicles in here. I'm sure you can come and join me, but it depends on your position. Copy that, make your way. Well, that's an interesting new side effect to our interaction of various technologies. We're watching November, the male cub. I'll explain to you what I mean in a moment. We're looking at November, and to finish off with Neil's question, it might not be November, sorry. If it were November, it would be a male cub of a high-ranking female, which is an interesting position to be in, because whilst it is sort of a cub under the protection of the female and therefore inherits her status, but still will have to be submissive to all of the females. But a higher-ranking male, in other words, born to a high-ranking female, might have the opportunity of staying on as a clan male and contributing enormously to a hyena clan's life. So just because they are submissive to the females doesn't make them in any way irrelevant in their lives. Male hyenas are responsible for a large percentage of those territorial calls, the typical whoop sound. I don't want to do it too loudly, obviously, so I don't want to disturb our little family that's dozing so peacefully here. But those low contact calls, a lot of that is done by clan males, and they will be exceptionally active in terms of marking territorial boundaries and regularly used pathways in the form of latrines, as well as in contact calling and occasionally banding together with the rest of the clan in skirmishes involving other clans. They're not irrelevant, it's just that they have to take a largely submissive role. There is no other mammal that shares this trait. He said that elephant herds are matriarchal. You could almost think of lion prides as being matriarchal as well, since a lion pride is a purely female and offspring-based society, and the males come and go in time, but the males are always bigger, always stronger, and always dominant to the females. Nobody knows why spotted hyenas evolved to be this way. One of the biggest theories is the big mother theory. So the bigger the female, the better they are at producing milk, and therefore the longer they can lactate and feed their babies. And Anne, you were wondering about the third cub that came wandering through and whether or not it was old enough to eat meat or if it would still be reliant upon milk. It's a fascinating thing about hyenas. A high-ranking female can lactate for up to 1.5 years. They have such an extended period of lactation, usually averages between 8 to 12 months that they lactate and feed their young. However, the babies will start to feed on meat between 5 and 6 months old, so that little cub that we saw earlier might be nibbling away, supplementing its diet ever so slightly with meat. It is not yet fully independent from its mother. Well, guys, there is another vehicle that is making its way into the sighting. Oh, trouble's just arrived in the form of an older cub. Who have we got here? Is this now November? So tricky. Oh, I don't necessarily... Oh, there you go. Look at that submission. Immediate genital presentation to the matriarch. Tail down. Oh, very, very aware of the risk of a bite to the bottom, and showing clear submission to the cubs of that hyena as well. I don't need to leave, but I do need to shift around. But we should hopefully be able to get a view from the other side of the bush. Okay, let's go forward a little bit. No, let's remember. All right, let's go forward a little bit, and hopefully we can still have a view around the other side of the bush. It's important to just make space for other vehicles. Now, only 2 of us will be allowed at this den site at any one point in time. How's your view there, Dave? You good? Here we go. It might mean that our view of the interaction is limited, but I think that the hyenas are relatively relaxed in terms of their behavior at the moment. I don't think they're feeling all that playful. That could well change. It's not as windy as it was, which actually means that the hyena cubs will be a bit bolder in their behavior. We spoke yesterday about the fact that the windier it is, the more nervous a hyena cub is around the hyena den. I know, one of the big reasons why I absolutely love spotted hyena, apart from the complexities of their society, not just the female-driven aspect of it, but actually the complexity of their social interactions as a whole, their hierarchy, the way in which it works, and their success as both predators and scavengers. The thing that really attracts me to hyenas is the intelligence in their expressions and in their eyes, and in fact in their day-to-day existence. They are very, very bright animals, and that's been scientifically proven. It's not just through interpreting their facial expressions, which of course would be a ridiculous way of going about things. They did an experiment with comparing chimpanzees to hyenas, a social experiment in which a piece of meat was based on a platform and the only way to get the meat was to pull in opposite directions. So they did this, and it took the chimpanzees a slightly, ever so slightly shorter time to work out the puzzle than it did the spotted hyenas, but both of those different species did very quickly. Then the kicker was that one of the chimpanzees and one of the hyenas was replaced with another individual that had never seen this puzzle before. And within a split second, with only seconds, the one spotted hyena had clearly communicated to the other spotted hyena how to solve that puzzle, how to go about getting the meat down, and they had cooperated together to do that, faster than the chimpanzees did. They've got an immense amount of problem-solving skills, and that may well have come from the fact that they evolved at the same time as human beings, and they evolved in a way that allowed them to always be on the outskirts of human ancestors' settlements and dwellings, scavenging, taking advantage. Now, up until we worked out what was going on, and the dustbins were placed very safely out of their reach every night, the spotted hyenas used to learn to come into camp, and they learned that if they tipped over the dustbin and it made a noise, that somebody would come and chase them out. And what they learned to do was pull the dustbin upright out of the camp and then tip it over once they were out of earshot. How's that for problem solving? In the space of just a couple of nights, they worked out that that was the way forward. And Andy and Julia, just on the subject of the strangeness of the genital arrangement of a female hyena, Andy and Julia from Los Angeles were wondering, how does a spotted hyena give birth through the pseudopenis, which is essentially an extended clitoris? The answer is with difficulty, and in fact it's not uncommon for a female hyena giving birth to her first cubs to either lose that set of cubs or lose one of those cubs, or in fact die during the labor process. It is a bizarre adaptation that they have going on that actually can result in the death of younger females. Once the female is a bit older and she has given birth once or twice, it's a bit easier. The shape or the passage has been split open to make the passage of the cubs easier, but it is not an easy process for her. Well, the same goes for the mating process, in which the vaginal passage actually inverts to allow for the penetration from the male. Again, not an uncomplicated way of doing things. It's still not known exactly why it is the hyenas have evolved to be that way. Quite bizarre, and yet totally intriguing and fascinating. Now, those injuries on Madam are almost completely superficial. They're not going to do her any harm. But we suggested that it was a possibility. It was that they came about through a fight with a neighbouring clan. And Jason Jones has put some thought into this and was wondering whether or not a rival clan would target the matriarch. Possibly. You know, we don't know fully everything about spotted hyena society, and even when we read studies that have been conducted about spotted hyenas or conducted through observation of spotted hyenas, a great deal of those studies are actually conducted elsewhere in Africa, which completely changes the ball game. Tanzania, Kenya, Botswana, Namibia, those are all very, very different ecosystems. So I don't for 1 second believe that we know everything there is to know about a spotted hyena clan. That being said, my suggestion, Jason, was that rather than necessarily the rival hyenas targeting the matriarch might be the sort of the hyena that leads the charge in that kind of situation. So they're known They're not necessarily the biggest female in the group, but they generally are set apart from the others by their sheer attitude. And yes, she might well have come barging in to the skirmish, putting herself in harm's way first. And that maybe is a different explanation, but a similar idea as to what it was you were asking. I don't think they targeted her. I think she made herself a target, if that was indeed the case. Just in the same way that when there is a breakdown in discipline and a hyena needs to be shown its place, from what we have observed from her behavior, herself, Corky and Pretty have always been the front runners in those aggressive moments with other lower ranking hyenas. Now we're almost getting to the stage where it is a little bit too dark for us at the hyena den. We might have to think about leaving them relatively soon. If you are joining us on our live safari for the first time, just to illuminate you, and not the den, haha, we cannot actually light up the den site. The reason being that the cubs are quite young, and it is our policy not to disturb them any more than we need to. And that would include shining lights on these young cubs, and it just adds an additional level of distraction, particularly at night, since the biggest killer of hyenas, the lions, there's always a chance of them moving around as it gets dark. So while we exit the hyena den and set off in search of other nocturnal creatures, let's find out what Brent is up to.
We're back on the hunt for the dominant female leopard of Juma, Queen Karula. And she is proving to be a little difficult. But we have not given up hope. We are the eternal optimists. And this is a favorite area of hers. So I know there are 3 of us now driving all the little roads in this area, hoping to catch a glimpse of the Queen. It's nearly time to pop on all the lights. There we go. Now, the reason I'm putting on my headlights is not so I can see where I'm going. It's to see if I can see any of her tracks. It's still a little bit light for the use of a spotlight just yet, but my spotlight will be coming out a little later. This is definitely one of the best times of the day. As the sun sets, there's just a little bit of ambient light around, and it's sort of a trigger for the cats to start moving, start hunting. So there's a good chance we might find her if we do on the move.
Thanks, Jamie. I'll be pulling up.
Checking every termite mound and checking the road in front of us. One can never give up hope that we're going to find something spectacular around the next corner. And yesterday was proof of that. And we got our first ever pangolin on the live safaris. Now, quite interesting. Now, I'm just listening here now, and if I keep quiet over my shoulder, we can hear some very late cicadas. So normally they are calling. I'm going to see if I can catch one. Just hang on. I'll be back. Okay, so I think they sound like redback cicadas, which is very strange because they are normally always January, or sorry, November through to about February. But it could be because of the lack of rain and this surprise rainy weather we've had now that's caused them to pop out. Now they're going to sit. Oh, you see, they went quiet when they heard me. So at least I know where to look for them. They like to sit on the branches. And they are very, very camouflaged. They sit flush on the branches. I thought there was one underneath. No, nothing flew. So it could be a bit further, maybe on that one. Just keeping a careful look. They're incredible creatures. They're actually very hardy and very, very tough. No, they're avoiding me. But it's still really interesting that we've got cicadas calling this late in the year. This little bit of late rain and the fact that we've had almost no rain for our normal wet season could be the reason that they're calling now. But it is like, normally in the summer it's a deafening sound. And literally every tree is filled with cicadas from top to bottom. Now, very interesting, in the US, your cicadas only make an appearance once every 16 years. So they go underground, they go dormant for 16 years. I find that absolutely fascinating. Out here, owls make noise every year. So they keep creeping through this area where we think Karula is. And a lot of the game drive roads are in the specific spots they are for a very good reason. Now, more than likely they were old elephant paths originally, and a lot of the big cats like a good road to walk on. No grass in their eyes, although there's much grass this year, but particularly in the early mornings to avoid the dew. Bouncy, bouncy. Okay. Let's check back down towards Twin Dams. Well, Anne would like to know, why do we call Karula the Queen? Well, Anne, that started long before I joined SafariLIVE. She's called the Queen because she's the dominant female on Djuma, and when the live drive started, she's probably the most seen of all the cats. And I'm not sure who gave her the original nickname, the Queen of Djuma. Maybe one of our long-time viewers out there can tell me who knows how, or who gave Karula the original name, the Queen of Djuma. It'd be very interesting to find out. So if you know, pop me an email, questions@wildearth.tv, or use the hashtag SafariLIVE on Twitter. Let me just fix my seat here. Sorry, I'm falling off. There we go. I think we've driven down this road about 5 times today in search of her. 5th time, 6th time, lucky. Nearly time to get the big spotlight out. Not quite yet, but I've got it at the ready.
We apologize for Brent disappearing off your screens as suddenly as he did. As most of you know, Wendy's experiencing a severe attack of the gremlins, which is the nickname we give to technical difficulties. that we experience every now and again out here. And our tech team are furiously working on solving the problem. And never fear, because you've arrived on safe and sound on the back of Rusty, and we're heading out into the night to explore. And as most of you know, one of my favorite times of day to be driving out in the bush. There's this building sense of the unknown and the mysteries that are going to unfold during the night. And I think one of the big reasons is because the leopards and the lions are more active at this time of day. But for me, most importantly, you get to see all kinds of rare creatures. Things like porcupines, in theory, and servals and wildcats. And of course, Dave, you do realize that unless you find me a pangolin, this is favoritism. That's how it works. If you don't find me a pangolin, I'm going to take offense. Although at least this time you'll know what it is. Dave was taken very much by surprise by that pangolin sighting yesterday. However, he did very, very well in terms of picking up on it and spotting it for Brent. I've decided that since Brent's claimed the rare pangolin sighting, it's my time to now find a caracal. And the lovely ladies in Final Control agree with me. I haven't seen a porcupine yet either. I mean, not that I'm complaining. I'm really, really not. I've been incredibly lucky with sightings in terms of unusual animals. Between the honey badgers with Sam and Brent this morning, to our serval from a couple of weeks ago, and my African wildcat from about a week ago, I really cannot begin to complain. But you know, I'm not complaining. I'm just setting the bar quite high. And in winter, one can do that, especially in this drought. We're going to see unusual animals scurrying and wandering about at strange times of the day. We already saw that bull hippo out of the water earlier, and that we're going to be seeing more and more frequently. You never know what might decide to come wandering out of the bushes. And of course, there's always the lovely bird life of an evening drive. Yesterday, Brent had a relatively rare sighting with a spotted eagle owl. I'm hoping for a Verreaux's eagle owl next. I know that Brent's looking for white-faced Scots owls, which would be something he's been aiming for days now, or months, to get on the live safaris. But we all have our different goals. Saw the serval somewhere here, and of course my brain, despite knowing that it is irrational, always checks the same place where I've had a particularly interesting sighting for that animal, even though I know it's outside of our Traverse area, just somebody calling in a leopard, but in Buffelshoek, not south, sorry, north of our Traverse area, somewhere where we cannot go. They've just called in a leopard there. However, it is walking south, which is relatively good news because that's not far from our cut line. Just want to keep listening. Still far away, apparently. I'm not going to make it here before the end of the sunset safari, but you never know. Could well be there for us to follow on the sunrise safari. And I don't know why, but something has made my eye absolutely poor. I'm sorry, please bear with me. Just trying to dab away at it. It's hay fever season out here. Most of us have been sneezing our way through the drives. There's a lot of dust about. And even though we've had a little bit of rain, it's still incredibly dry, which means that there's even more dust flying about than normal. And of course, even if we can't manage an aardvark or a porcupine or something unusual, we could still see a bush baby, which I would love to get on screen once again. They're a little bit lazy in these winter months. It takes them a while to get out and going. James Richard is wondering, could we not go and check the honey badger burrow? That's a very good idea, James. I think it's a brilliant idea. I wonder whether or not Brent doesn't have that up his sleeve, however. Unfortunately, I have absolutely no idea where the honey badger den burrow may be. I don't know. Brent didn't tell me this afternoon. I'm not sure exactly where he saw them. Dave, were you with Brent this morning? No, you weren't with Chandra. Alright, so Dave doesn't know either. So Dave's just going to have to go back to pangolin spotting instead. Or anything else, Dave. I'll settle for anything else. Dave accepts that as his challenge for the evening. Of course, each and every person's spotlighting technique is somewhat different. I was mocked by James for my high-armed, sort of lifting the spotlight right up in order to shine and to look for the different animals. I was mocked to the point that I've actually completely changed my technique now, despite standing by the fact that it is quite a useful one. I've now got my arm right down. But everybody has a different style, but most of us, you'll notice, are quite erratic in the way in which we shine the spotlight, and that's because we're checking the areas that we feel will yield the best results, whether it be a large marula tree or an open clearing or a drainage line. We're trying to cover as much ground as possible with the spotlight. And we can afford to move it relatively quickly because the briefest glint of an animal's eye shine in the dark is really very noticeable. It catches your attention immediately. Like, for example, the fact that there is something hiding right in the middle of where my spotlight is, Dave. And I can't see the eye shine properly. I'm just going to switch off. You see there's something, there's definitely an animal. But I can't see what it is. Maybe see it better. What are you? I know there's something there, but I can't tell you what it is. Unless I can hear elephants, but it's definitely not an elephant. And I've lost it now. Stop looking here. Huh. I have absolutely no idea what that is. I'm going to try go forward. Dave, I need you to try and zoom in because now I can't see. But I can roughly show you where it was. It was sort of in that bush over there. I'm watching from the monitor. Try and keep my arm still. Everybody keep your eyes peeled. I genuinely don't know what it is and I can't get a good angle at it. Well, that might be a mystery forever. Because I cannot work that out. Oh well. There's something moving about. Is that it down there? Down a bit, Dave? Is there something there? It is. There's something moving, right? Yes, there's something moving. What on earth? It looks like a cat head to me. Those look like cat ears, don't they? And there's my imagination. Oh, don't move, Jamie. Sorry, this is really difficult to do because I can't see it. Can you see where I'm shining there? Is that a genet? I think we've got a genet. There's definitely something there. And I'm determined to figure out what it is. My arm is about to drop off from this angle that it's at. You can hear Eddie's coming towards us. Come on. Come on. What have we got here, everybody? Any guesses? What do you... Oh, sorry. Tip the arm a bit. Oh, oops. I can't move more than a millimeter or the light disappears. Dave, do you think you can take over? I'm about to drop the spotlight at the angle that I'm at. There. What is that? Dave very kindly has now taken the spotlight. And our mystery animal is there. I have no idea how to figure out what that is. There, it's moving again. Oh, a little bit to the right there. You can see its ears moving. Oh, there we go, movement again. What on earth have we got here? I cannot figure this one out. There, it's looking back at us. How big are we looking now? Dave, we're very zoomed in, aren't we?
Yes.
So it's small.
All the way in.
Okay, so it's something small with cat-like ears. Oh, this is terribly frustrating. What on earth are you? Teresa's convinced that it is a serval. I wouldn't be surprised. It's a something. I think it is a... Oh no! Poor animal, it's a daker. Oh, sorry Dave. We're just going to take the light off it. It's a poor daker that has had its head turned all the way around, so we couldn't see it. We could just see the backs of its ears flapping. Sorry, Mr. Dacre. Apparently Brent is killing himself laughing at us. Oh, that's devastating. I got so excited. I thought it was a wildcat or something. Just to let you know, because obviously most of you know that we try and avoid shining on diurnal animals like that. But the Dacre did have his head turned away, so we won't have damaged his eyesight in any way. He might feel a bit dazzled, but that's why we couldn't see what he was, because he had his head turned away from the light. So sorry, Mr. Dacre. My apologies. He was just looking for a nice sleep spot to go to bed, and I'm never going to hear the end of this now. That's so disappointing. Brent's going to tease me all day. And you, Dave. Yep. You know you're going to be involved. I'm sorry, and that's not even your fault. But you're going to get dragged into that as well. Oh well. Guess it definitely wasn't a serval. Next time. Can't have all the luck all the time. That would just be too easy. Oh, I can smell a big musk ball somewhere here. An elephant, that is. In that state known as must, with the high raised levels of testosterone, makes the elephant very, very smelly, very distinctive smell, and I can smell it. VM describes it as Oros, gone off. Oros is a South African juice concentrate that we, as kids, all of us were given at sports matches. At half time, you went and you had Oros. That was what you had. And VM thinks that an elephant in must smells like Oros that's been left in the bottom of a cup for a while. Oh, I'm going to go and nurse my embarrassment and slight disappointment. In the meantime, I suppose we should head across to Brent so that he can tell you all what he thinks of that somewhat embarrassing moment.
So we're looking for any nocturnal wonder. So 80% of the more interesting small mammals come out at night. Porcupines, honey badgers, serval, caracal, genet, civet. So we're looking for all of those. Now this is a particularly good area for those little creatures. I've seen civet and serval and genet and bush baby all in this little stretch. So fingers crossed that one of them is going to be obliging. And of course there's always a chance of a leopard or a hyena or any other creature popping up. Also checking the big dead trees for owls. The last serval I saw was just up ahead here. Oh dear, nothing much out there this evening on this open seapline. Oh, I think I spotted a bush baby. A bush baby. The smallest primate we get out here in the African bush. Was around on the other side of this tree there. Still see eyes. Best is going to be from the other road. It was quite far away. Hopefully he doesn't move before we get closer. Trees here. Of course, he's got to look at us for us to spot him. We're looking for the shine of his eyes. Dear, he looks like he's disappeared. Been quite the eventful day. I think Kahuma's trying to catch those buffalo this morning. Unsuccessful. I've just heard they've now moved to Sibambili, so they've moved to the west of where they were this afternoon. Hopefully they're going to come back east early tomorrow morning. We'll definitely be checking for that. While we continue to try to find something fascinating in the last few moments of drive, which we're of course failing dismally at right now, Genre and I would like to bid you adieu. Thanks for joining us, and don't forget we're going to be on again in a few short hours for the sunrise safari, and everything's going to be brand new, so hopefully lots of tracks and lots of cats. But till then, let's hand you back to Jamie.
While Brent starts to head for home and the evening draws and the darkness draws ever closer, I'm prolonging the inevitable teasing that's going to occur when I get back to camp by continuing to just keep driving. I just keep driving, we don't have to go home. No, I'm joking. It's not like we haven't all made that mistake in the past. And I'm sorry, as I turned to speak to you, an eyelash of mine decided to turn itself inside out and is now attempting to crawl into my retina. There we go. I think that's a bit better, sort of. There we go. Much better. Oh, not quite. Dave, I hear you do some fantastic eye work. Thank you, Dave. You'll all remember, of course, those of you who are watching, the fantastic drive where poor James got flies in his eyes and Dave had to come to his rescue and help him to remove them one particularly memorable afternoon. Dave has since had to help me out with a very similar situation, and I can tell you that he is very good at helping one out in such optical emergencies. Not quite as bad as summer. Remember that dung beetle that we started the show off with? Well, I had one of those once fly into my face whilst driving at relatively high speed, and as a result had a full-on black eye. It looked like somebody had actually planted a fist in it. It was just from a dung beetle that had hit me. Also sliced open the side of my eyebrow. It just goes to show there's some very strange hazards out here, maybe something that you might not expect. And apparently some of you, of course, were convinced that there was a serval on the back of the Dacre. I thank you for that level of comfort. It was Gen B, apparently, who suggested there was a serval on top of the Dacre and therefore no embarrassment necessary. Very much appreciated, Gen B. All right, Dave, I suppose we should start heading back south again. We should think about it eventually. Prolonging the inevitable. Oh. How truly unfortunate. That is a very badly placed roadblock, elephants. That was definitely ill-considered. There's not even any way around it. Ah. I wonder if I can shove it out of the way. I can't. Not with the VR rig. Thank you, Dave. Oh, how terribly, terribly unfortunate. All right, I'm going to have to put my spotlight down for 1 second so I can navigate around this. And yet to spend the last moments of your sunset safari watching me do an Austin Powers style maneuver here. Oh. Okay, let's not put the GoPro rig in the spiky tree. You good there, Dave?
Yep.
All limbs out of range. There we go. Oh, that was pretty easy. That was actually relatively painless. Lovely having a little car that one can maneuver. Okay guys, just a quick note, I'm not sure if Brent touched upon it or not, but that from the 1st of June, our sunrise safari will be changing times. So our sunrise safari will be starting half an hour later. And forgive me because I'm going to read to you what that means in terms of start times in your various time zones. So that's 6:30 Central African time in the morning till 9:30. What that means is 12:30 at night to 3:30 in the morning Eastern time, and 9:30 at night to 9:30 midnight Pacific time. And the details will also be on our SafariLIVE Facebook page for those of you who didn't manage to scribble down those time changes in time. Well, all that means is that we are half an hour later in the mornings. Our sunset safari will stay exactly the same. It's just so that we can follow the times of the sunrises and the sunsets. And as you can see, darkness has fallen. It's time for Dave and myself. Excuse me. Sorry. Don't know where that came from. Time for Dave and myself to head for home. I think I swallowed a bug. Thank you to Dave for all of his fantastic camera work, as well as to Rebecca and to Lou in final control. And most importantly, thank you to you all for your questions, comments, and joining us on the back of our safari vehicle. We'll catch you in just a few hours, but in the meantime, have a wonderful day or evening wherever you are. All right, and hopefully by tomorrow morning, my lungs will be functioning. Bye-bye.